and bonging, but it still does. It still like really wants to tell me when I get an email, and I don't want to know that. So, okay, let's get started. So tell me before we go, why do you think it is so hard to set your own macros with confidence? What do you really think? Feel free to pop it in the comments or go into, if you're here on Zoom, go into the chat and let me know. So if you aren't sure how to get to the chat on Zoom, play around on your screen, try it. There are 3 dots sometimes to let you get to the chat. And I'm going to close the chat during the training again, because I'm recording this for ladies who couldn't be here live. So it doesn't make it so that they can't see everything that's happening. And let me see what else. I may even shrink the window that shows me talking, just so it doesn't go over our slides. Let's do that. Okay. So before we even get started, let's do this. Why don't you, if you're not sure why it is so hard to set your macros with confidence, which I get that can be even hard to articulate, why don't you hop in the comment or the chats and tell me if you could pull out a 1 to 10 scale, which I love thinking this way about big ideas like this. Get out a 1 to 10 scale in your mind and rank yourself now. And we'll do like a pre-test. I know a lot of us here are teachers, and then we're going to do a post-test at the end. Where are you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on your confidence right now in your macros? Just in your macros, what is your confidence? Are you feeling like a 2? You feeling like a 5? And if you are feeling chatty, good morning, Elfie. Let us know too in the comments. Why are you saying it's a 6? Why are you saying it's a 7? Like why do you feel that way right now? Is it a 1 because there's so much unknown? You're not sure where the numbers even came from. Is it a 10 because you've learned to set your own macros? Maybe you've taken the Biceps After Babies Macro 101 course. A lot of you have. Maybe it's a 2 and you have taken Macros 101 and you're still feeling not so confident. For me, it depends on the day. And I have taken Macros 101 and I've gotten to walk alongside lots of you and talk macros and set macros. I practiced macros for 3.5 years and I still struggle with confidence from macros. So that's why I thought it's so important to talk today. And we're definitely going to pull back the curtain on what math and what algorithms and what's going on behind the scenes with setting the macros. We are going to do both of those because I think both of them are at play. So let's see what you all are saying. Different websites. Yes, Michelle, I appreciate this so much that different websites give you different numbers. And where are those numbers even coming from? That is a lot of what we're going to pull back the curtain on today. And so we'll see, Michelle, does that help you feel more confident by the end of the presentation to at least know what, let me get the chat over here. Where did the numbers come from? And so I'm also going to show you, Coach Jules and I have a great guide for you coming to you, how you can play with your numbers and manipulate them to work for you and your body and where you are right now. And Lindsay said, I've never felt quite certain that the numbers are right. I need to stick to them and figure it out. Yes. I kind of get the impression you're talking like, you've got to trust the numbers to be right, but then you also have to be consistent to try them out. And that is exactly what we're going to get to today, Lindsay. That's going to be like the real gist of this presentation is that it is okay if we don't feel a 10 of confidence in our macros, because we're going to talk through how can you test drive them and tweak them, because it's okay if they aren't perfect. You know, we're all about no perfection required to get the results we want. So you're thinking 1 to 10 on a scale. Where are you? And let me see. I'm going to peek at my Facebook comments. Okay. Yeah. It's hard to trust the process. I doubt the program. I hear you. So right now, 1 to 10. And then again, you guys remind me at the end, we'll wrap up with another like self-check, because those are so powerful. Another self-check, because your macros are not magic, but you are. And I just believe this with all of my heart, that the macros aren't magic. But because you can put on this idea of being a macro scientist instead of a macro dieter, you can work the magic with yourself instead of giving all the power to the macros. Macros really only are numbers. And I posted this earlier, I had this aha moment that maybe it's not really an issue of trusting the macros. It's not really an issue of having confidence in your macros. It's really an issue of us trusting ourselves. and having confidence in ourselves. And that's big. And that is what I'm going to ask you to be on the lookout for that today during this presentation. Like, when is your mindset or your old beliefs or your old habits of thought of not trusting yourself and not having confidence in yourself? When is that lighting up today? And raise your hand, let me know, let us know in the chat so that we can make sure we start to do some mindset work too, even as we're learning like the education piece behind how to set the macros, because we need to work on both of them at the same time. And I would argue that we really can start building trust and confidence in ourselves by just showing up here. Like, in my opinion, you all here already to build trust and confidence in yourself by getting some education around what happens to really set up macros. And along the way, you're going to be doing mindset work. You're not going to help but for it to happen. The fact that you're here shows that you're a bit of a macro scientist instead of just a macro dieter. If you've never heard Amber from Biceps After Babies talk about that concept, it's a really empowering way to think of things, that the macros aren't magic. You're the magic, you're in charge. And so let's get started. And again, as we go along, be listening for your mindset to talk to you, and hopefully we'll notice some new learning. But we are going to start with hopefully a good, strong base of what you already know. And that will make it easier to, let me peek into the chat. That will make it easier for you to build on some new learning today. So let's start with the big idea that in the past, maybe a lot of us have tracked our calories. We get that calories are a measure of energy. And here's the connection between macros and calories. Calories are really where we're starting even when we track macros and set up a macro setup. Calories just measure energy, and we can manipulate them. We manipulate how many calories we put in to get out different results. We can put in less calories and maybe burn some body fat. We can put in more calories and maybe be more likely to burn muscle. So we start with calories. Macronutrients are the source of your calories. And here's where they're coming from. You may already know this, but again, let's build on what we already understand so it'll be easier on the coming math slides for us to not freak out and learn some new things. So each gram of protein has 4 calories to help you keep yourself full. Each gram of fat has 9 calories to help balance your hormones. And each gram of carbs has 4 calories, and they support your mood. They all do a lot. The macros do a lot of other jobs, but they bring you your calories and they keep you full, balance your hormones, and support your mood. We can cut the calories down, and that's the area we're going to focus on today. We can do other things with our calories though, right? You guys have heard me talk about reverse dieting and maintenance. I'm in maintenance now. I'm maintaining with my calories and my macros now. Well, we can do other things besides lose weight. We can do other things besides cut the calories to lose weight, but we're going to focus on the lose weight picture again today because, like I said earlier, we're going to start with what we understand the most so we can build some new learning on top of it. And we understand dieting the most. So we can cut calories to lose weight. When we then divide up our calories into some of the calories are going to carbs, some of the calories are going to go to over here to some of these calories are going to go over here to our fats and our proteins. When we divide them up in that way, then we are deciding where's the weight loss coming from, okay? Because if we're setting up our macros to get enough protein, does this sound familiar? And enough fats, enough carbs in the right places for us, then we're going to be more likely to burn body fat, and that's where the weight loss will come from. Instead of going on a calorie deficit diet and not really knowing anything about protein. And then we wind up burning our muscle mass, and that's where our weight loss comes from. Because when we're in a diet, our body can very easily go say, hey, you're not giving me enough fuel. I'm just going to go burn some muscle for fuel instead of body fat. So this is where we start with calories. And that is why we take the next step of dividing our calories up into macros. So then how do we even know? And hopefully you're asking yourself this. Maybe this is something you wondered about. How do we even know how many calories we need to start with? Like, there we go. Let's move me up there and all of us. How do we even know how many calories we need to start with? How does MyFitnessPal even pick the cut calories, the diet calories it gave you? Where is that really coming from? Well, here's the big idea. There's this thing called your TDEE, If you've heard of it before, thumbs up. Maybe you haven't, and that is okay. Your TDEE stands for your total daily energy expenditure. And that is, in theory, how many calories do you need to live your life every day? So you take to breathe, to walk out to the car, to digest your food, to go to the gym, to do everything you need to do in a day. This TDEE is an estimate of that. And that's where these macro calculators are starting. That's why they're asking you, how much do you weigh? How tall are you? When were you born? And what's your activity level? That's why they're asking you that, because they're going to use those numbers in this formula that was established long ago, time tested, and they're calculating a TDEE for you. And that's your maintenance calories. That's where we start. And then MyFitnessPal and the other calculators ask you questions to see how much do you want to cut away from that if you're going to be on a diet. That's why they then ask you things about how much weight do you want to lose. So we're going to stay with first things first, and we're going to go, let me do this. I want us to go to this website. I want you to see this. So I think I'm going to have to escape out of my presentation. And hopefully not double click anything like a crazy person, because this new mouse I have is on a Mac computer, and it is sensitive and it likes to zoom in on everything. So we are going to this website, which Coach Jules, who is now my partner in crime, and she was just teaching yoga. I think she's going to join us soon. Coach Jules has done a lot of research and found this fantastic TDEE calculator. And I love it because it's plain and simple. Under their FAQ section, they lay out all of the formulas that are behind this TDEE calculator. And so we can use their formulas here to get a little estimate on, in theory, for someone my age and height, what kind of maintenance calories do I need? So we're going to pretend today. And again, you're going to get a guide with this website in it, with all of these steps in it to walk through. So please don't panic if you're trying to rush and do the math right now on this. It would be okay to just let yourself listen and take in the big ideas during this, and then do your workshopping when I get the email guide to you tomorrow. So we're going to pretend today that we're kind of like me, female, age 46. Let me see if my mouse will let me do it. There we go. Okay. Be very careful. It's also drawing on the screen. It's okay. We're going to pretend I weigh 146 and I am 5'4". And here, now this is where your old dieter mindset starts to freak out on you and not let you have confidence in your macros. When they ask you about your activity level and you're like, how do I get this right? What if I don't always go to the gym? How do I? No, this is where you stop and don't freak out like you used to. This is where we're going to start practicing the new mindset right here, ladies. We're just going to pick something and go with it and move on with our lives, because we want to get to the macros and go test them out and test drive them, and then we'll see. So we're going to say I'm basing this on me. I work out 3 days a week with weights right now, and I walk 2 to 3 days a week. So I'm picking moderate exercise. I have a guess at my body fat, but it's just from my scale. I have no clue if that's accurate or not. So we're going to leave it totally blank, and we're going to hit calculate here. And I'm going to even shrink my screen because I don't want you looking down there, those other things. It's going to say things down there about how BMI and no, don't look down there. We're not going to go let this set our macros. We're not going any further. We just want this information that's right here. And it is, I love how they do this. I love how it's reported. So in theory, based on my information about myself that I just put in, my maintenance calories are about 1,995 calories a day, or 13,967 a week. And there's something really neat here. It is my basal metabolic rate. And then they are even showing me what my maintenance calories, my TDEEs, would be at my different activity levels. If I were sedentary, if I did light exercise, moderate or heavy, and in bold, remember I chose moderate exercise, 1995 calories per day. So this is like where MyFitnessPal, this is the math it did to give you, without telling you, that you are, in theory, someone like you would burn this many calories just by living your life. This is the number we're then going to go cut away from. I do want to point out this basal metabolic rate. Has anyone heard of basal metabolic rate? Give me a thumbs up in the comments or in the chat. Okay, so your basal metabolic rate, again, it is an estimate, a rough estimate, but that's how many calories you need to be alive if you were in a coma, is how I like to put it. So if you just laid in bed and you didn't eat or drink or get dressed or anything, that is the BMR. I want you to put a little eye towards that number, and in your guide, I'm going to have you write down your BMR, because that's kind of a baseline you can set for yourself. Like when I go into a calorie deficit, I'm not going to go much below that BMR estimate, or else I'm going to start to put myself in a place where my body's not even getting enough fuel to be in a coma. And that is not sensible. That is not what we're here for. If that is the approach you want to take, this is not the training for you. You are in the wrong room. It is time to go do something else. There are other ways of weight loss that do take you there. We don't do that. So there's your BMR. Here's your moderate exercise. If your old mindset of I have to do all the research and have all the details and information overwhelm is kicking in, you are allowed to go over here to the FAQs. And right here, you'll see his clear, simple explanation. I know you probably can't read it on my screen, it's small, but he clearly and simply explains that scientists have come up with these terms: sedentary, light exercise, moderate, heavy, and there's scientific definitions behind them. And he even says, after a few weeks and based off your results, fine tune your calories up or down. And that is what we're going to talk about how to do later. And that is where you're going to get a lot of confidence from, because you are in charge. The macros are not magic, but you are when you have this information. So we've gotten our TDEE, and now we're going to go cut away from it. So now I have to figure out how to carefully get back to our slides. And let's try, if I press present again, will we see a more pretty view? Okay. I'll have to figure out what all those red lines are on the screen. Okay. So now, how much do we cut off? Where does that cut come from? Who picks that number? Okay, who has any ideas? Check in the comments. Have you ever answered in MyFitnessPal or another app, even Fastaway app? I want to lose half a pound a week. I want to lose a pound a week. I want to lose a pound and a half. That is this. Those questions, whose mindset alert is going off about those questions? Who has been sabotaged by those questions? Amanda, I set MyFitnessPal to lose a pound a week, and I haven't lost a pound in 5 weeks. What is wrong with me? No. What is wrong with the calculator? It is not you. The calculator gave you a false expectation by saying, if you do this math, this will happen to your body. No, they do that as a marketing thing. They do that to help you wrap your brain around what to choose. And it's okay, but let's leave all that go, and we're going to be in charge of what kind of cut we want to do for ourselves. And I do have to say, a lot of you here today are a little advanced. You're kind of already moving towards macro scientists, or you wouldn't be here. And so you are able to do this. You can handle this. And we're going to look at all the numbers. So we're not going to think about it. I'm going to do 15% and lose half a pound and 20. Nope. But we are going to do a little bit of math and keep our BMR in mind as a baseline to not go below, so we can pick how many calories do we want to use in our cut. And let me make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself or forgetting anything we need from our notes. Okay. So, I wish I could. We're not going to panic right now. It is okay if you're not good at math. I just want you to hear the big ideas here. You never have to do this math. You can reach out to Coach Jules and I for help on this. We do macro we can do a macro mini session with you. One of you who's here today live, we're going to give you a free prize of a macro confidence session. So don't freak out about the math. That is the old macro dieter thing to do. Instead, we're here to build our self-confidence. Even if we're not good at math, we can wrap our brains around this. And what is happening on this screen is just some math. What I did was get out my calculator and turn my calories into like a sale. So I said, well, if my calories for maintaining my life are not 1,995, what if I took away 15% off? That would mean I'm taking away 300 calories. I just did 0.15. And if you have a fancy iPhone calculator, it'll even let you just type in 15 and percent button times 1,995. And that would tell me, okay, I'd be cutting away 299 calories every day. That could be my diet number. And so I just took 1995 minus 299 calories and saw, oh, that's for the diet, 1,695 calories a day. That's all my MyFitnessPal did. That's all Fast Away calculator does. When you say I want to lose half a pound, some calculators are just set to a certain cut percent. In my observation recently, I think Fast Away calculator set to about a 25% cut, which is a deep cut. It's pretty aggressive. So 20% off my maintenance would be leaving me 399 calories lower a day for 1,596. 1995 times 25% is 498 calories that I'm going to cut off. And that would leave me with 1,496 calories for my cut. All right, let me make sure no one is saying this is too much math and I have to leave now because you're scaring me to death. It's okay. Again, remember, you're going to get a free guide that lays this out step by step. So it'll walk you through the math to do. And again, you don't have to be able to do this. You just need to know, oh, that's what's going on in MyFitnessPal or the Fast Away calculator when they give me this cut number. And I don't have to go with any of these numbers, you guys. If I don't like any of these numbers, I could go somewhere in between. I could pick 1,600. I could pick 1,500. Who remembers my BMR? It was 12 something in the TDEE calculator, wasn't it? So I could even, if I'm like, no, I've done a lower cut before. I really want to be cutting pretty low. I'm only going to do this diet for 8 weeks. I could even go below 1,496 and pick 1,400. I'm in charge here. The macros are not magic. We are the ones with the magic because we know what's going on behind the scenes. All right, so you've got your calories. Now, remember how there's a certain number of calories in each kind of macro? It's time to just portion them out. And we're not going to do it with percentages. We're going to be even more in charge than that. But we are going to go in an order. So can anyone guess from you all being macro scientists already? I can see everyone. Tanya's here, Lisa. We have major macro scientists on this training. Who knows why I'm going to say we're going to start with our protein macros? Why are we going to prioritize protein when we do this setup? Let me see. I didn't open the chat for a minute. So let me go. Lindsay, okay. While you guys think, why would we prioritize protein? We're going to set up your grams of protein first. Why would we prioritize it? Let me think. And Lindsay, when you said, are you going to help us decide which one is best? Do you mean which cut number, which cut percentage? Wonderful question. Here is what I do for myself in times of uncertainty, when I just want to get it done and not have to be perfect. I go with the middle. I would just start with the middle number. I would do the 20% if it were me. If I couldn't think back, like, what have I cut at before and how did it go? Then I would just pick the middle number and start there. Because again, in a few minutes here in the training, we're going to see how do we test drive this macro setup and get results that then will tell us what to do, because they're coming right from our body. And you might be thinking, but Amanda, I've done this before and haven't gotten any results, so I didn't know what to do. We're going to cover that too, because you did get results. It was just that things stayed the same. That's a result that tells you what to do, and I'll tell you what to do. Does that help enough, Lindsay? All right. And then Lindsay suggested, I'm with you. Yes, that protein keeps us full. That is why I'm going to suggest we start setting our protein first. And remember when we talked in the beginning about cutting calories leads to weight loss, but setting macros determines where the weight loss comes from. So if we make sure our protein is prioritized, and I'm going to say this, high enough, then we are protecting that muscle mass. So again, on a diet, when you're putting your body in a little bit of jeopardy on a diet, you just are, you're not giving it enough fuel. I mean, that is what it is. It is the cost of a diet. We can at least protect our muscle mass because you all are here saying, I want to lose weight, but what you really mean is I want to look more lean. You do not want to look like you have less muscle. No, none of us want that. And it isn't good for us. The muscle burns calories. So there's like a million reasons to start with protein. You guys are on it. It keeps us full longer, said Allie. And let me move the chat and we'll get into it. Okay. And hopefully, Chris, that helped you too. How do you decide which to do? There is no wrong answer. There is no wrong answer. You're in charge here and you are going to learn how to pivot if needed, or when needed, I should say. It's like in this journey, knowing how to pivot is going to be such a mindset support for you, because you're going to realize there's always another option. We never have to give up. We never have to get this done. There's always going to be another road that we can take, another thing we can try. So, Lavana, you are way ahead of me. We are going to talk about how to get the grams that you set up into MyFitnessPal. You're an expert, I can tell. All right, we're going to get protein in there. Then we'll do our fat to support our hormones, even in a diet. And then we'll talk carbs because we want to be in a good mood. How in the world do we know where to start with protein if we don't just let MyFitnessPal tell us that it should be 20%? Well, you could just do 20%. That's actually, again, that middle road where I said, when we're not sure what to do with our settings, we can just let ourselves take the middle road. You could just think about 20% of your cut calories. So remember my cut calories, I'm going to go with the middle. We'll do middle. I did like the 20% number. So it was like 1595. So I could just say, what's 20% of 1595 and divide that up into my protein. There is no wrong place to start. What I would wish you would do, and maybe some of you can do this, is think about the past diets you've done. And if you were tracking, how much protein were you getting? Did you feel good with that? Or were you always hungry? Were you always tired and never satisfied? That old number probably wasn't enough. And I would love for you to say, I wonder if I could go up just like 5 grams higher. I don't want you to think I maybe could go 50 grams higher, because you can't. It's too hard. You will sabotage yourself. And so to start yourself off, maybe think, could I even just go 5 grams higher? And then you know what? Because you're going to know how to do all this, you're going to know how to later add on more protein if you can get to it. You're like, I'm rocking 100 grams of protein right now. I'm going to add on some more. I want you to see this next chart. And again, don't freak out. There's going to be a lot of numbers. There's this idea that you can think about here. And if a coach helps you set your macros, this could be going on behind the scenes. And again, you are going to have this all printed out for you. You do not have to memorize this or even understand it right now. You're going to get a copy of it for you to keep. You can think about your current body weight and doing some multiplication to get to a protein gram. So this is just more ideas for you. And if you're like, oh, Amanda, I see on there, it says I might eat 1 gram of protein per body weight pound, but I weigh 220 pounds. You're being ridiculous, Amanda. Yes, that would be ridiculous to try to get in 220 grams of protein. But you could look at this chart and see, oh, no, wait. Over there, it's saying if I have more than 40 pounds to lose, then maybe a more sensible place for me to start is to think about 0.5 gram to 0.7 gram of protein for every body weight pound I have. And so I would take my body weight, 220, whatever it was, and multiply it by the 0.5 or the 0.7 and see what number I get. And again, if you're like, well, that number is huge, I can never get to that number, then good for you for knowing that. You are on the right track, and you're going to think about what could you get to and set your protein there for now. Let's do, let me see. I don't think we have any new chat. Okay, so here's an example where we're pretending that I was that person that we set up and found her TDE and chose to do her 20% cut. Let's pretend, because it's me, I have a lot of practice in getting in protein. I've been doing it for over 3 years. I eat 140 grams of protein a day now. So for me, it would work for me to say, I'm going to shoot for, in this cut, 1 gram of protein for every pound of my body weight. I'm going to choose 146 grams of protein. and just go from there and see where I land. And if it turns out to be a terrible decision and I don't have enough fats or carbs left, we're just going to go back and choose something different. No big deal. None of this is set in stone. Okay, time to talk fat. We're going to do fat next just because it is important for your hormones. And I did put here, there's no wrong place to start, but I'm going to have a little caveat on the fats. And maybe you all can tell me, has anyone ever set macros and had fats below 40 grams a day? If you can remember from the past. I hate to make generalizations, but I have heard so many other macro coaches say, and I've lived this myself and lived it alongside of all of you tracking, going below 40 grams of fat a day is almost a sure recipe for disaster. Because you know, if you've tracked, right, it's hard to find enough foods to eat that don't have fat in it to where you could eat your 1,500 calories for your diet a day and not go over 40 grams of fat. That's just not how food it works. So you might think about keeping at least 40 grams of fat at play for you. And again, think back to your past. You are a macro scientist. You've maybe done macros before. What fat setting worked before? Do you want to try and shoot for that again? So maybe just say, yeah, you know what? I know I can do 50 grams. Let me just put that number down and we're going to see what happens. And again, there is a little chart we can talk about or look at and not have to understand right now because it's coming to you in your free guide. You will have this to keep forever and ever. There's this fat multiplier chart. Interesting to think about. Over here under have half a gram of fat per body weight pound, being something you do when you're in maintenance or bulking. I don't have the chart going beyond that because most nutritionists and the FDA will say, when your diet's more than half a gram of fat per body weight pound, you're eating a quote unquote high fat diet. And then they worry that you're having too many saturated fats. And so there aren't recommendations beyond these for these fat multipliers. Okay, let me see. So here, let's look back at our example. Again, we're pretending it's me going into my cut, which I'm going to be doing with Coach Jules soon. I think we're going to have it in March. She and I have to decide. Let's pretend that I chose to go with 58 grams of fat, because that sounds to me like I can probably do it. Right now, I get about 72 grams of fat a day. And so even looking at this, I'm like, oh, this is why I only cut for a certain amount of time. And then I end my cut and I reverse diet and I live in maintenance. Because looking at that 58 grams of fat today feels a little challenging to me. Okay, so what about our carbs? We can't go on without our carbs. Yes, all the rest we're going to talk carbs. So can you kind of put it together in your mind that we calculated protein grams, and we did our fat grams. That ate up some of our calories, but there's some left. And all we're going to do is divide up what's left by 4, because there's 4 calories in every gram of carbs. And it's going to just be our carbs number, but we don't have to settle for it if it's not what's going to work for us. So here's what we did. I chose the 20% cut. That meant I have 1,596 calories to work with. I'm thinking, let me use 146 for protein, 146 grams of protein. And the math on that, how many calories did that use up? It's just 146 grams times 4, because why? There's 4 calories in every gram of protein. So I used up a chunk of calories there, good chunk. Then I thought about fat. And remember I said I'm going to pick 58 grams because I think I can pull it off. And it's important that the numbers we pick be doable. And we'll talk about why in just a minute. So why is the 58 grams of fat times 9? Why not? Why is that times 9? Well, because there are 9 calories in every gram of fat. Remember from the beginning when we talked about our macros give us our calories. That's where calories come from. So I used up some more of my calories there, but I have some remaining calories and I just divide them by 4 because there are, 4 calories in every gram of carbohydrates. So let's see what we wound up with. And again, close your eyes if you're like, this math is making my stomach hurt. Close your eyes. Don't look at this slide. It is okay. You do not have to be able to do all of this right now. You're going to get a free guide that will walk you through this. And again, you can reach out to Coach Jules and I for support on the math. We can point you towards the TDEE calculator section where it actually helps you well, it suggests some macros even, because it will kind of have done this math for you. So it's okay if you don't understand this math. That is not going to stand in your way as a macro scientist. But this is just what I just talked through. This is just what I did. This is just the math. And what I wound up with, we can change because macros are not set in stone. We can always, always, always go back to the drawing board. And that's why I picked this chalkboard picture. And this is a big mindset piece. This is where we're going to start trusting ourselves and not needing to trust the macros, because there's always another option. Macros are meant to be flexible, and even more important, we can be flexible. We can be willing to go back to the drawing board and say, this just isn't going to work. And in fact, I would say, who here has tried to be perfect with their macros before? But we're all here together saying, wait a minute, that didn't work. We still don't trust ourselves. So give up the perfection approach. It is okay. We're going to try some new things. We do not need to be perfect. Instead, we're going to just try being flexible and think like macro scientists. So time to look at the big picture. Over here on the yellow Post-it note is the setup that I just threw together for myself. And I have to ask myself, are those calories just too low for me to be consistent? Do those grams even sound doable? Or are there tweaks I should make right now before I set myself up for failure? Because I bet some of you have gotten macros set by MyFitnessPal or the Faster Way app or a coach or another app and thought, this doesn't even sound doable. And to me, my first glance at this, I don't think I can do that few of carbs, because I've done carb cycling and had those days when I don't know. And that's okay. Because I could go back, couldn't I, and take some of those protein grams and give them to my carbs. I can just go back and tweak the math. I'll say, okay, what if I do 130 grams of protein? That gives me some calories to give over to the carbs. And we'll try it out and see how it goes. These are the kind of tweaks we make now, and maybe even after we test drive some more. So this is time to test drive. We're going to take that macro setup that you just created for yourself and observe how it goes for a week, looking at hunger cues, sleep, mood, energy for living your life, and probably most important, how consistently are you able to get towards the goals? And you're going to get some signs, and you might need to even feel like you're in test drive mode for 2 weeks, especially if you're newer to macro tracking. And this is when you're going to consider making some adjustments, but not adjustments for results. Instead, you're going to make adjustments for just how doable does this feel. We're going to make consistency adjustments. We're going to make how doable is this adjustments. Is this doable? Can I keep pulling this off for how many ever more weeks I'm going to be in this cut? And hopefully you're kind of saying, why does Amanda keep saying how many weeks am I going to be in a cut? Doesn't she mean until I lose all the weight on the scale? No, I don't. And we'll talk about that. Jules and I are going to bring you at least 2 more trainings on the tail of this one, because there's a lot more you need to know to really feel confident in your macro setup and get that self-confidence. So we will get there. But we're going to teach you that we actually want you to put a time frame on your diet. Maybe you're going to pick 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 14. And so you'll be able to ask yourself during the test drive, can I do these macros for my 12 weeks I'm choosing to do this? And it is going to be so empowering to you. You're going to love that mindset. We're going to teach you what to do to finally get to the number on the scale if that's your thing. Don't worry, we're not going to leave you only getting so far, but we'll get there. What if you notice in those 2 weeks that this wasn't doable? What do we do? Let me see what the chat's saying. What do you think about that? So yeah, what do you think? What are we going to do? If this isn't doable in those 2 weeks, what are we going to do? And go back to that drawing board, right? And what I'm going to just say as a general comment, one piece you can do is add on 100 calories. Because remember when we were back looking at my choices? Sorry for all the clicking. This is the only way I know how to do it. I'll keep practicing. We were way back in the beginning because we start with calories, right? And we made up our own cut. We didn't let MyFitnessPal tell us what to do in mysterious ways about the scale. Way back here, we chose to cut me 20%. Maybe that was just too deep of a cut. So I could add on another 100 calories, which would put me back closer to this 15% cut and still be in a deficit. I'm still in a cut. And you might, who's thinking 100 calories would not help me, Amanda? That sounds too small. All right, I agree with you. You will be surprised. 100 calories doesn't feel so small when you add it on mindfully and think about, am I going to give it to protein? Is it really that this felt so undoable because I was in such a protein, I just didn't have enough protein coming in? Do I want to give those 100 calories to protein and maybe some to carbs? Do I need to give some to my fat grams? You're going to get to decide if it just isn't doable after your 1 to 2 week test drive and you can't consistently hit the macros because you are too hungry and too frustrated with this deficit mindset and deprivation. You get to decide what you do with those 100 calories. Give them to carbs, fats, protein, however you want, because now you know the math. Divide them by 4 and you can give them to carbs or protein, right? Divide them by 9 and you can give that to fats. And a lot of you, okay, yeah, we'll get here in 1 second. A lot of us have been stuck here making these beginning adjustments for enjoyability, doability, consistency, weeks and weeks and weeks into our cut. So who has been like, reached out to Amanda or to our friend and said, should I change my macro percentages from 30% protein to 25%? Should I change my carb percentage from 40 to 45? Should I change my percentages? And you're weeks and weeks into a cut and you're asking these questions because you're not getting the results you want. Who's done that? Everyone I know has done that. And that's all we knew to do. Why didn't that work? Because those are the wrong adjustments to be making that late in the game. These adjustments of your calories and how you're portioning them into macros so that you can feel full enough and in your mind, okay enough to make it through the cut, they happen in the beginning during the test drive. And then they don't work anymore. They don't. You guys have changed your percentage splits so many times in Fast Away and MyFitnessPal stuff, and you know it just doesn't get results. That's not what happens usually. Every once in a while, but it's not something we can rely on. So we're not going to do that. We'll talk about what to do in just a second. But I did want to address this slide. I was going to skip it, but some of you even asked in the beginning, if we've just done all this work to come up with these custom macro goals for ourselves, we've been our own coach, we've set our own macros based on our plan and our needs and our preferences and what we know about ourselves. How do we get this into an app where we can track it? Well, easy peasy for those of you who have a paid MyFitnessPal account or a Faster Way to Fat Loss app. You can put in custom goals into both. And I'm not going to go exactly how to do it here, but you can ask in the comments in our Well Women's group, and I will put up some videos to walk you through how do you enter in the custom grams that you just created. If you have the free MyFitnessPal, you are really going to have to tap into your progress over perfection mindset, my friend, because you're going to have to just use their percentage dials to get as close to the grams you designed for yourself as possible. And you'll be surprised. You can get pretty close, and close enough is okay. If you have to pick that you're going to do 25% protein, 30% fat, and 45% carbs to get to the setting, really close to the grams you set for yourself, but it's like 2 grams off, that's okay. You can write on a Post-it what it should really be and just do your best. So hopefully that answers your question. I think it was Lavana from earlier about how do we get into an app to track this. And then All right, Lavana, you are the advanced student. Hold on one second, and we are going to talk about you already added the 100 calories. You're still not seeing results. We're going to get there in just a second. And you said, how do we know where to give the extra 100 calories? It is your decision. You are in charge here. There is no magic to where you put the calories. It is up to you, because these adjustments in the beginning are for your enjoyability and consistency. And you could even split the difference. Say, all right, well, maybe I'll give 50 to carbs and 50 to fats. And then you just do the math. If you want to give 50 calories to carbohydrates, you would divide 50 by 4 and get an answer. And that's your extra grams of carbs you're going to put into there. And Lindsay was asking, how long do we keep the test drive in place before making a change? Okay, so you guys are ready. We're going to go to the next piece. And this next piece is so big, and we've been here together already for 45 minutes. We're going to have to do another training on this, but I don't want to leave you hanging like, I don't have the answers I need. What if I don't see results? And that is why most of us are here. That's why we felt a little unconfident and not trusting in the macro setup, because it didn't get the results we wanted. If it had always worked, we probably wouldn't be here. So again, we just talked about how there are adjustments that we make to make this doable. And those are going to be different than the adjustments that I'm going to teach you next week to make for results. So you're going to go, you just set up your macros, you're going to go test drive for a week or two and see what you observe and see if you need to add on your 100 calories to your carbs, fats, or protein. No wrong answer. And then you're going to come back next week and we're going to talk about, number one, how can you be a macro scientist who actually sees what the results were? Because it's not true that you didn't get results. That's not possible. You might not have gotten the results you wanted. You didn't want the scale to stay the same. You didn't want the scale to go up. You wanted to see the scale go down, but you did get a result. You did see the scale stay the same. That's a result. You did see the scale go up. That's a result. That is biofeedback from your body. And maybe we're taking measurements and making notes about your sleep. You got results, and that's what we're going to teach you next week. How do we make sure we're seeing results? Because we're keeping track of enough information. And then how do we make adjustments so that we start getting the results that we want instead of the results that we didn't really want? And we're not just going to talk about macros next time, because we can adjust macros. We can adjust exercise, on purpose exercise. I'm going to say cardio, and it is we're going to do one or the other, or we can adjust our NEAT, our daily walking around activity. We're going to learn those 3 levers that we can adjust. And we're going to learn how to tie them to what our body is telling us, to the results our body is showing, because they're there. We just have to train ourselves to trust ourselves to see them. And a lot of you have been asking, how long do we wait? Again, you're going to implement either your macro change, which is really like a calorie change, or your cardio change, or your walking around activity change for at least 2 weeks and gather data before you make any other changes. We're going to treat this like a macro scientist. And if that happens 2 times, then we're just going to stop, because your body is getting some really powerful results. It's not just that you're in a plateau. That's not it. Instead, it's your body telling you the diet phase isn't right for you now. Your body's not on board. If you wanted to see the scale go down, you set your macros, you adjusted them for doability, and you have been consistent. And then you even leveraged maybe 100 less more calories, or you chose to add on an hour of cardio to your week, or you chose to add on 2,500 more steps a day, and you still didn't see the results you wanted after 2 weeks, not a single thing changed. That is a clear, strong sign from your body that it is not willing to be in a diet with you right now. You can eat as little as you want and exercise as much as you want, and your body is not going to lose the weight. And that's physically possible because your body can downregulate your metabolism. It can say, nope, I am not healthy enough to do this diet, and she can keep depriving me of what I need and asking me to have more energy. So I'm going to have to downregulate. I'm going to have to slow down her metabolism, slow down her hormones. That is all I've got to do. I am not going to go burn the body fat. There's nothing wrong with you. You didn't do it wrong in the past. You haven't been inconsistent. It's not that you'll never figure this out. None of that's true. What's true is that your body can just say, no, fat loss isn't what we're going to do right now. And so Coach Jules and I will teach you in those next 2 trainings, what do you do if you get that result? And I think a lot of us are here because we've gotten that result. You all have been perfect at the fast way. You all have been perfect with your macros, and you still haven't been getting the results. And so we got to talk about what else can we do? And there's major interventions we can try. Like, I've used my bioidentical progesterone. That's been one option I've gone to. Like, that's something my body needed to be willing to burn fat. But there are other free next steps you can learn to take, like reverse dieting and being in maintenance for a while. And that's what we're going to teach you so that you can later come back to this diet phase and get results again, because your body will be willing to join you at that time. Before I answer questions from the chat, let me do this. Yes. So you heard me say, you can join us again, and there will be replay recorded and a guide for this next training as well that will come to you if you can't keep being here on a Monday, because it won't be President's Day next Monday at noon, 12:30, sorry. Next Monday at 12:30 though, we will be live again like this, and it will stream into our Well Woman's Facebook group. So it's saved for you. And you're going to learn how to adjust your plan with confidence. You're going to learn what you've been missing about how to adjust and when to stop trying to adjust and do something different than the cut phase, so that you can finally get the results that you wanted. Okay, I think Miss Coach Jules, she was teaching yoga this morning, is answering questions in the Facebook group. So I appreciate that so much, Coach Jules. And then let me look at the chat from Zoom questions, and we'll see if you have time. If anyone wants to volunteer to have us walk through setting macros right now with you live so others can see the math again, we can do that. We don't have to. And again, if you've made any comment or you were here live, that all gets recorded in my Zoom, so I know you were here. And we'll do a raffle from all of your names and pick one person who will win a free macro confidence coaching session with Coach Jules and I. And that the winner will be notified by email. So watch out for your Amanda Brinkman Brockman at Gmail emails, where my newsletter comes from, the meal plans come from, and I'll post the winner in the Facebook group. So check the Well Women's community, and we'll get you scheduled for your free session with us. Okay, so let me look at the chat comments. And if you think of any more questions that didn't get answered, before we do it though, tell us in the chat or in the comments, where is your confidence around macros now? Let's do a post test on the 45, 50 minutes that you spent here. Did your confidence on the scale go up? Are you a 5 instead of a 4 now? Are you down to a 1 because there was all that math and you're trying to hang in there, but that was really discouraging? It is so powerful. This is something I've learned from Coach Jules, because she's helping me do my workouts, to do a pre-assessment and a post-assessment on your sessions on yourself. You get so much out of this reflection. And so do Coach Jules and I, because then we can better tailor these trainings to you and the guides that we're going to send to you to make this all work better for you. So if you felt a change, give us a number. If you weren't here at the beginning of the training, I said, as we're starting out, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, which is such a powerful thing to do when we're talking about kind of fuzzy subjects like self-confidence, confidence and macros. Give yourself a rating on a 1 to 10 scale. Where did you land and why? And then you can rate again later and see how did it go? And if you could only be intermittent with us, then you don't have to rate, but let me know. Okay, so I see a few of you saying that you kind of felt like you went up a little bit because new resources and information. Feeling a little hopeful, worried about the math. Yeah, I know. For me, as a former math person a person who was a little nervous around math, this training honestly might have made me feel a little less confident. And that's okay. Because remember, a coach can help you with the math. You can let MyFitnessPal do the math. You can let the Fastaway app do this math. Now you know where they're coming from, though. And you know, it's not that you messed up if you didn't lose a pound a week. It's just that it was just that they were like doing a math trick. It was nothing about you. Michelle said she feels like she's a 9 now. And Allie liked the math explanation, more power to figure things out. All right. So it sounds like a lot of you tapped into your macro scientist a little bit more today. Like having a little bit more information and education behind you helped your self-confidence. I appreciate your feedback so much. And Michelle said a 9. This training confirmed that macros calculated a few weeks ago from the BAB macro calculator were okay, but you were second guessing yourself. Fantastic. And if you haven't checked out, Michelle, would you recommend the Biceps After Babies free download to calculate your own macros? This is what you're giving the thumbs up to. So you can go to bicepsafterbabies.com, and I think over on the right, she has a tab that's like free resources or something is the name of it. It's kind of a little hard to find. If you can't find it, let me know in the Well Women's community. It is similar to what we did today, where she does pull back the curtain on the setup. She makes you do a few more answers, usually about your activity levels. So some people get a little tricked by hers. But with what you learned today, just like Michelle, you can maybe go use it and say, all right, I'm cool. Like this is pretty close to what I came up with on my own. This is confirmation that I'm probably starting in a smart place. And I can always go back to the drawing board. I'm so glad you guys were here, Levon. I'm glad the math. Yeah, I agree. The math is confusing, but don't worry. Tomorrow, after this saves and I get it uploaded, I'm going to email out to all of you. And if you're worried I don't have your email, go ahead and put it into the comments or the chat. And I will make sure this is posted in the Well Women's Community Facebook group. If you're not already in the Well Women's Community Facebook group, just go on Facebook and search Well Women's Community, join the group. And this training will be there in the free resource guide to go with this. So you can just walk yourself through the math easily, step by step. You will have that, Lamana. Okay. Because I get it. The math is a little, what? If you've never heard any of this before, it's a lot. So, let me see. I know we've been here a long time, and let's see. Gail said, I was a 4, now a 7. Understanding where the numbers come from is really empowering. Well, I'm so glad we got to be here together. Is there anyone who would want to stay for a few minutes to volunteer, be our one volunteer to walk through setting your macros with the steps we just went over? Or you, okay, if you're thinking, I don't need to right now, I'm going to go try it on my own at home, turn all this around in my brain, wait and see if I won the free macro confidence session with Coach Jules and Amanda. Let me check my notes and make sure we didn't leave anything off that we need you to know. We did our, okay. Melody, Miss Melody and Toman on Facebook in our Well Women's community. Are you saying, Mia, you would want to walk through with us? If you are, let me know, because I think then Erin said she would. And ladies who are here, if you're like, I've got it, it is time to go. We're not going to do anything new. I just think if you were a little mind blown by this, it might be helpful for you to see me walk through the math with one person. If you're good, I am so glad that you got to be here today. Again, you are proving to yourself that you can trust yourself and have the self-confidence to do anything just by having shown up here today with curiosity to wonder if you can build your confidence. Renelle, thank you. Gonna try it on your own. Got to go. Have a wonderful Monday. Thank you for being here, Michelle. It was nice to get to see you. I will see you soon. And let me look back. Yes, Melody. Okay, Melody Ann, since I saw you speak up first, we will go through together. And I think what we'll try, okay, so if you're, I should have put this out there first. Remember, you're going to have to be comfortable with us putting your age and height and weight right now, that was everything, wasn't it, into the TDEE calculator. So if you're still on board with that happening in our training, I'm going to go ahead and even record it, because I do think it'll help really for the folks on the replay who didn't get to ask questions as we went, to see us walk through live with one person. So give me one more thumbs up, Melody, if you are willing to. Okay, oh, she's willing. She's already given me the numbers. Okay, so let's think. We still want to share my screen. We're gonna shrink that window of the slides. We're gonna go over to that good old TDEE calculator and go back to their little home page. All right, it's cleared itself out. And so, Miss Melody Ann, okay, you are female. Okay, so this is where she would start. Remember, we got to know their calories we're working with in theory. And she would put in her age is 66, which is what she just told me. Your current weight is 117. And if I'm typing things wrong, Melody, please, please, please yell at me in the comments on our Facebook group and we will fix it. This is all just in chalk, easy to erase and retype. Okay, here's where we're not going to freak out and be like, how are we going to choose the activity level? We're just gonna go with clicking here, and Melody Ann, it's asking you, are you going to pick sedentary because you have an office job and just sit most of the day, like most of us, like I am right now, like we've been doing for an hour? Are you going to say, I do light exercise 1 to 2 days a week, moderate, heavy, or you're a performance athlete working out more than 2 times a day? You were just in the Olympics. Let's see. We'll wait for Melody. You tell me which one to choose. And you know what? Let's do this. Remember how I said when we don't know what to choose? Oh, okay. So I was going to say, when we don't know what to choose, we go with the middle, because the beauty of this calculator is you're going to see it's going to show us all of her settings, no matter what she chooses. So she's going with sedentary. And then Melody, and do you happen to know your body fat percentage because you've recently had like an in-body scan, or you have a trainer who's done calipers on you? It's totally okay if you don't. You may know, you may not, and that's okay both ways. You know what I'm going to do is go ahead and click calculate without a body fat percentage, because almost no one ever knows their body fat percentage, even if you have one of those wonderful scales. Did we put in that you're 5'1"? Yes, we did. Okay, so. Okay, thank you, Melody. She said she didn't have that right now. And here's what, remember how we're not going to look down here, though I will show you down here because I don't, I'm not going to. If Melody Ann was totally freaked out by all this math we're going to do, she could come back here and look at these ideas that they're sharing about what she could do for her setup. But we're not going to go there now. We're going to go empower ourselves to be a macro scientist. So I'm covering up all this silliness about ideal weight. We're totally ignoring all that down there. And here we see Melody's, in theory, according to these calculators, in theory, her basal metabolic rate, and remember, that's her BMR, how many calories she would burn if she were just laying in bed all day, not even eating or drinking, is 1,008 calories a day. And if you're like, oh, these numbers seem so low, well, you will notice, well, no, you probably wouldn't. As a coach who's gotten to work alongside people setting macros, because of our age and our height and our weight, our calorie needs look very, very different. Okay, so that's why this might look very, very different than a calorie setup you've ever seen for yourself. So Melody sees here, her basal metabolic rate is 1,008 calories. I better write that down. And on your free guide you're going to get, you're going to write down that BMR, basal metabolic rate, and kind of have that guideline in your mind that if I'm going below that number, I am really stressing my body out, because then I'm not even putting enough calories in to lay in bed all day. And that's really hard on my body and going to have long-term consequences. Okay. And then her maintenance calories, this calculator is suggesting, would be 1,210 calories a day. And that is where we start. And then we can think about what percentage do we want to cut off of that maintenance number for her cut calories? And then she'll divide them up into macros. And if there comes a time when she decides to add in exercise, I didn't mention this before, she could look again at this TDEE, couldn't she? And she could look at the fact that if she adds in light exercise, she's going to need more calories, and she can adjust her settings there too. All right, are you with us, Melody? Give me, is it making sense so far where we just got this number and what we're going to do with it? So it is time to go figure out what kind of percentage cuts do we want to do. And I think probably couldn't hurt for us to let the presentation be in the back of our mind to look at the different numbers. So remember, you choose. And when we start to calculate these numbers, we're going to see with where Melody and is that it's going to be keeping her BMR in mind, going to be not too tough for her to pick a cut percentage. So I don't think I'm going to open a calculator on my computer right now. I'm not trusting that it would go well. I think I'm just going to do it on my phone. And maybe Miss Melody. So here's what I'm going to do. Here's my slide over here. Make this so you guys can see. Remember, we'll just even change. We're just going to change what I have here, and then we'll all be able to see it. When we looked at that TDE calculator, it predicted that Melody's calories to work with to maintain her life where she is right now we're 1210. So let's look at 1210 calories times 15%. If you do that math, it's 1210 times 0.15. And we get 181.5 calories from that. So what would that leave Melody with? And we may not have a lot of calculating to do here because that's going to take her pretty close to her BMR. So what I just did was 1210 minus these 181 cut calories, and I landed at 1,020. We're going to call it 1,029. I'm going to round up. This 1,029 just a little bit above that BMR that the calculator suggested. Remember that over here? Okay, so let's look. What if we do 20% off of her 1210? If we cut 20%, just out of curiosity, where does that land you? So I'm doing 1210 times 0.2 because 20% is the same as multiplying times 0.2. That would take 242 calories off of her daily calories. What would that leave her with? She's going to be down below her BMR, I believe. So what I just did was 1210 times 20% for a 20% cut. I saw that would take away 242 of her calories, leaving her with 1210 minus 242 is 968 calories, and that's below her BMR. So I'm going to stop there. And this may happen to you too. You may say, okay, that BMR guideline really pointed me towards that this 15% cut is the place for me to start. And now she gets to divide up her cut calories into her macros. I'm going to put my phone on my charger so we still have our calculator, see if Melody hadn't had any questions yet. If you have questions about this as we go along, Melody, just stop me. So now I'm going to jump over to this protein multiplier chart because I feel like this is, I like thinking of protein this way. But remember, Melody could also just ask herself, is there an amount of protein? And you can tell us if this happened in the past, Melody, was there an amount of protein that felt good to you in a cut before? You can think about what did you do in the past that worked well. You could think, 20% is a pretty average recommendation for protein when you're in a cut. We could just take 20% of your calories and put it to protein and be done with it. Or she can, or in addition, or she could look over here at the protein multiplier chart and think, okay, I really only want to lose like a few pounds, or I have more than 40 pounds to lose. And that might help her choose an idea. Okay, Melody said, in the past, about 100 grams of protein a day. So let's just go there, because that's what we're really encouraging you to do, is like lean into what you have been able to do before. I think my daughter's friend is here. Okay, so I'm going to write down, we're giving 100 grams to protein. And I also needed to go back for just a second because I didn't write down our cut calories. And then remember, it's time to think about the fats. And again, this is just such a smart place to ask yourself, when I've done this before, what felt okay? And the reason you often see MyFitnessPal and Faster Way to Fat Loss saying 30% for fat, it's just because it's a good starting point and can often give you at least those 40 grams of fat. I'm going to look at that 117 that Melody weighs and 2.3 would be 35 grams of fat. This is actually I'm so glad that Melody, you volunteered for this, because we're going to see if we do a 0.3 grams of fat per pound of body weight for you, you'd be at about 35 grams in your fat. And remember earlier, I said it can be really hard to go below 40 grams, but that's not necessarily true for someone like Melody. She even mentioned in the comments, I know if you're on Zoom with me, you can't see them, but in the Facebook group, she said, I need to be taller. You don't need to be taller. You're perfect as you are. And we're just setting macros that work for you and your special body. Like every one of us has a very special body, and you are over 40 and you are petite, under 5'4". And so your macros are going to need to look different, and that's okay, because that's what's going to serve you. So let me see if I can jump back to the group. Do you have any input, Melody, on a fat gram place to go? If we do that 30%, which is 0.3 grams per pound almost for your body, might be a good place to start. And that's about 35 grams of fat. Maybe you guys are thinking, if I was Melody, what would I choose? Okay, you're good to start. Okay, Melody is giving me the go, because she is in charge here. Again, macros aren't that magic. You are. You now know how to do this. And she can always go back to the drawing board. So we say her weight was 117. I multiplied it times 0.3 and get about 35. So that's 35. That means 35 grams of fat. So I just wrote that down. And then what are we left with? Good old carbs. So here's the math. We'll leave it here so we don't see too many numbers confusing us. I'm going to write down, she's using 100 grams for protein. And every one of those grams of protein uses up 4 calories. So she just used up 400 calories for her protein. And then she chose a fat number. It's not the same as what's on this slide, but she chose her fat number, which was 35. And remember, fats, they have more calories. So those 35 grams of fat, they're using up, each one of those grams is using up 9 of her calories. Or I shouldn't say using up. Each one of those grams of fat gives her 9 wonderful calories of energy. So 35 times 9, get out my calculadora here. 35 grams of fat times 9 calories, and each gram of fat that she's thinking she's going to go with is 315 calories. So she first did 400 for her protein, then 315 more calories, went over to getting her some fats. What's left? Well, I'm just going to do 400 from our protein, 315 more from our fats. That used up 715 of her calories. So what's left? What's remaining? I'm just going to do some subtraction. Remember, her cup was thinking about 1,029 calories minus the 715 that we just used. 314 calories are left. And you see at the bottom of the screen here, when we see her remaining calories, she's got 314 calories left to work with. We just divide that by 4 because we're turning it into carbs. Each gram of carbs has 4 calories. We're turning those calories into grams of carbs. So we divide that number by 4. 314 divided by 4 is 78.5 carbs. And I'm going to have a place to write this down for her because, again, remember, these macros aren't set in stone now or later. What really matters is that she gets to look at them and think, like, is there any way in the world that this would work for me? So what if I just do this? I wonder if this will let me, so we can see it and kind of think through it and talk through it. And Melody, and you can give us your feedback. We do it this way. Okay, so when you look at this setup that you come up with, and if you let us know, Melody, and by no means do you have to follow this, by no means does this ever really have to happen. So just let yourself have that mindset of, like, we're just practicing this in theory. And this is the most important step, no pressure, where you look at this and say, could I ever pull that off? Does it make sense? Does that sound like I could be well eating this setup based on what I have tried before? And it's okay if you don't have any past knowledge, because remember, the next step after this is to test drive these macros for 1 to 2 weeks and see how you feel, see how it goes. And then if as needed, make some tweaks. I'm going to check our chat over here. Yes, Chris, I think, Chris, I don't know if you're still there, but it is a little confusing if you can't see me with my calculator. I should open up a calculator, huh? And we will talk more next week. Absolutely. If the math is getting a little overwhelming, don't panic. I totally understand. And for next time, maybe even whoever wins the free macro confidence session would let me record the session, and I will get my calculator out on my screen so you guys can see me doing the math. So Melody, you're thinking you would be willing to give this a try. And all the rest of us who have different calorie needs, because we're a different age, a different height, a different weight, and have different activity level, we might be thinking those wouldn't work for me. And that's the point of this. Melody is in charge of this because of her personal traits. And these are her choices that work for her. And she can try it, do her test drive, and collect the data, the most valuable part, and see, like, I wasn't able to do 100 grams. It's just too hard to consistently get there. I think I might need to change my protein down to 90 and give some more calories to carbs for the week after that. That might be a lot more doable. Or maybe she'll try these macros for a week and absolutely thrive because she's going to feel so full and satisfied from that phenomenal amount of protein. And she will then tune in next week to hear about how to set a time frame on how long she's going to be at these diet macros, so she can keep getting results and not accidentally sabotage herself because she keeps her body on a diet too long. So I appreciate you so much, Melody, being willing to let us put your numbers out there and try this out with you in charge. And if you do indeed try these macros, again, tune in next week and you can give us the feedback or the update, or you can post in the Well Woman's community about what do you notice when you test drove these macros, and even these calories. You remember some of the settings we said we can tweak at the very beginning are around, was it maybe even that the calories are just too low and it's just not going to be doable, and there's that is there some little tweak we need to make, like adding on 100 more calories or 50 more calories, so that you would feel like you could adhere to this plan consistently enough to start seeing results, and then make some decisions based on your results. Melody, you're very welcome. I'm so glad you were here today. And yeah, I just really appreciate you being willing to go through that. Let me check if we have any. I think we're all, I think because you have been here and spent this time focusing on getting more confidence in your macros, we should wrap up now. Be planning to look at your email tomorrow from amandabrinkmanbrockman@gmail.com for your replay of this training, along with your free guide to walk you through, so you have places to do the math and can feel even more comfortable because you have it right there in front of you and you're not trying to do any of this on the fly. And then again, join us. I'll put this up to remind us that next week, Monday, 1 week from now at 12:30 Eastern, so it's a little bit friendlier timing for our friends over on in the California side of the country, we are going to talk about all those great questions that you asked at the end of the training today. Like, what do I do if I set these custom macros according to my life, Amanda? Like I just learned how to do, and I get it. And I even tweaked it in the beginning so that I could stick to my plan, but I'm not getting results, which, remember, you are getting results. It just might be that you don't know how to see them and they weren't the results you wanted. So I'm not getting results. I'm not seeing my results. I don't know what to do to adjust based on the results I'm getting. That's what we're going to start going into and learning how to do for yourself with confidence next week. I would love to have you join us, and so appreciate everybody for being here and learning alongside each other. And thank you to everyone who volunteered to be brave enough to step up and have this happen live. That's really, really brave, and I appreciate it very much. And like I said, make sure you've made a comment so I can go through and see everyone who was here live and get you all entered in the drawing. We'll do a random drawing for one of you to win a free macro confidence coaching session. So in one of those sessions Jules and I could do with you like we did here today, but then also work on the pieces of like, well, what if it's really my mindset and I just don't trust myself? All of those other pieces of the puzzle, we can work on all of that. So there'll be one of those sessions raffled off today from everyone who is here live. And again, the replay and the guide are coming to you in your email tomorrow. So have a fantastic rest of the day. I hope you're off to do super fun things, and we'll see you again next Monday. Thank you all so much for